Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're heading to the bottom of the world to unpack a massive gravitational mystery, one that's hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice. And this isn't just some local curiosity. It's a riddle that might just force us to rethink how we see the universe itself.
So, here's the big question that's been bugging scientists for decades. What is hiding under 2 kilometers of ice at the very bottom of the world? I mean, something down there is creating this incredibly strange and powerful pull. But what could it possibly be?
Well, this phenomenon has a name, the Wilkes land anomaly. To put it simply, it's a spot where gravity is way stronger than it should be based on the actual landmass they've measured down there. And here's the kicker. The mainstream scientific community, they don't have one single agreed-upon answer for why.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the mystery itself, then look at the mainstream theory, the giant impact idea. After that, we'll search for a better answer, and this is where it gets really interesting. We'll dive into an alternative theory about a universe of charge, its connection to the magnetic pole, and finally explain what the source calls the wandering vortex.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Antarctica's gravitational mystery. We'll get right to the heart of the problem here. Why is it that the gravity just doesn't add up?
So here's the fundamental problem, the core of the whole riddle. You've got these incredible satellite gravity maps, right? And they show this huge gravitational pull over this one area. But then, when scientists map the actual thickness of the Earth's crust down there, there's nothing massive enough to explain that pull. The two sets of data completely contradict each other.
All right, on to Section 2. So how does mainstream science try to explain this away? Well, the leading explanation is something called the giant impact theory, and it points to a really violent event in Earth's ancient history.
The official theory, which has been around since the 60s, goes something like this. A truly gigantic object, we're talking something 4 times wider than the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, smashed into Antarctica. The idea is that this impact left a massive crater, and in the middle of it is a super dense chunk of whatever was left of that object, and that's what's causing the extra gravitational pull.
But, and this is a big but, our source material points out a huge problem with this theory. Just look at the comparison. On the left, you've got the Wilkes land anomaly, with that bright red spot right in the middle indicating a strong gravitational pull. On the right, you have the Chicxulub crater, the dinosaur one. It has the opposite signature, weaker gravity in the center. They look completely different. This strongly suggests they weren't caused by the same kind of event.
So, according to the source, the whole impact theory just doesn't hold water. First off, as we just saw, other big craters don't have that strong pull in the middle. Second, an impact of this magnitude, it probably would have shattered the entire continent, not just left a dent. And finally, there are no detectable fracture lines radiating out from the center, which is exactly what you'd expect to find. The evidence just isn't there.
Okay, Section 3. If the giant crater theory is shaky at best, then what else could this be? It's time to start searching for a better answer, one that goes beyond craters and, well, beyond aliens.
Naturally, some people have suggested there's a giant object buried down there, maybe even something of alien origin, a crashed ship. But the source we're looking at dismisses this pretty quickly, basically calling it a misdirection that has zero supporting evidence besides the gravity maps themselves.
And this brings us to a real turning point in the whole argument, summed up by this quote from the source's author, Mathis. As usual, we should look for the truth on a third path. The idea here is that both the mainstream explanation and the fringe alien one are wrong, and we need to think about this in a totally new way.
So, what is this third path? Welcome to Section 4, a universe of charge. This is where a completely new theory is proposed, and it's pretty radical.
Okay, so the core idea here is something called the charge field. The theory proposes that the universe is filled with a constant flow of real photons, and in this model, these photons have both mass and spin. They are constantly flowing into and out of the Earth. So what we think is just a gravitational pull is actually, according to the source, the force of this charge field bombarding the planet. So how does this work? It's actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, a vortex of this charge, these photons, enters the Earth near the poles. Think of them like giant cosmic drains. Step 2, that charge gets recycled through the planet and then is emitted back out, mostly around the equator. And this is absolutely crucial because it completely flips the problem on its head. The author argues that the satellites measuring this anomaly aren't feeling a pull from something massive below them. Instead, they're feeling a push from this incoming vortex of charge from above.
And that, the theory says, is why the gravity maps don't match the land maps.
All right, moving on to Section 5, the magnetic pole connection. This is where everything starts to click into place. It's the aha moment, where the source connects this wild theory of charge to another very famous feature of Antarctica.
But this brings up a really obvious question, right? If this charge is supposed to be flowing in at the South Pole, why is the Wilkes land anomaly located a full 20 degrees away from the geographic pole? It seems like a flaw, but the author claims this is actually the biggest clue of all.
The answer proposed by the source is, well, it's almost shockingly simple. It claims that the anomaly's location is a near-perfect match for the wandering south magnetic pole. In other words, they aren't two different things. They're the exact same phenomenon.
And here's the data to back it up. Just look at the coordinates. The Wilkes land anomaly is at about 135 degrees east longitude, 68 degrees south latitude. The south magnetic pole, back in 2006, when the gravity data was fresh, was at 138 east, 65 south. I mean, those are incredibly close. It's a near-perfect match.
Okay, so that brings us to our final section, the wandering vortex explained. Because if the anomaly and the magnetic pole are the same thing, this theory should also be able to explain why the magnetic pole moves, right? Why it wanders.
So why isn't the anomaly centered right on the geographic pole? The theory suggests that the massive, thick landmass of the Antarctic continent itself acts as a kind of blockage. It forces this incoming charge vortex to find the path of least resistance, diverting it around the continent, which is why we see it off-center over Wilkes Land.
So then why does the pole wander? Well, according to this theory, it's because the vortex itself wanders. The direction of that incoming charge from space isn't constant. It changes over time. And it's influenced by some pretty big players: the Sun, the giant Jovian planets like Jupiter and Saturn, and maybe even the galactic core itself.
And so, that leaves us with one final, really provocative question. If a fundamental force like gravity could be so misunderstood right here in Antarctica, on our own planet, what else about our universe are we completely missing? What other huge secrets are just waiting for us to find them?